Renyard the Fox. Part 2 by John Masefield. On old Cold Crendon's windy tops grows wintrily blown Hilcote copse, wind-bitten beech with badger barrows, where brocks eat wasp-grubs with their marrows, and foxes lie on short grassed turf, nose between paws, to hear the surf of wind in the beeches drowsily. There was our fox bred lustily 3 years before, and there he berthed, under the beech-roots snugly earthed, with a roof of flint and a floor of chalk and 10 bitten hens' heads each on its stalk, some rabbits' paws, some fur from scuts, a badger's corpse and a smell of guts. And there on the night before my tale he trotted out for a point in the vale. He saw, from the cover edge, the valley go trooping down with its droops of sally to the brimming river's lipping bend, and a light in the inn at water's end. He heard the owl go hunting by and the shriek of the mouse the owl made die, and the purr of the owl as he tore the red strings from between his claws and fed. The smack of joy of the horny lips marbled green with the blob by strips. He saw the farms where the dogs were barking, Cold Crendon court and Copse larking. The fault with the spring as bright as gleed, green slash laced with waterweed. A glare in the sky still marked the town, though all folk slept and the blinds were down. The street lamps watched the empty square, the night cat sang his evil there. The fox's nose tipped up and round, since smell is a part of sight and sound. Delicate smells were drifting by, the sharp nose flared them heedfully. Partridges in the clover stubble crouched in a ring for the stoat to nubble. Rabbit-bucks beginning to box, a scratching place for the pheasant cock, a hare in the dead grass near the drain, and another smell like the spring again. A faint rank taint like April coming. It cocked his ears and his blood went drumming, for somewhere out by Ghost Heath stubs was a roving vixen wanting cubs. Over the valley, floating faint on a warmth of windflaw, came the taint. He cocked his ears, he upped his brush, and he went upwind like an April thrush by the Roman road to Brache's Ridge, where the fallen willow makes a bridge, over the brook by White Hart's thorn to the acres thin with pricking corn, over the sparse green hair of the wheat, by the Clench Brook mill at Clench Brook Leat, through Cowfoot pastures to Nunley Stevens, and away to Poultrywood Street Jevons. Past Tot Hill down all snaked with mayuses, past Clench St. Michael and Naunton Crucis, past Howell's Oak Farm where the raving brain of a dog who heard him foamed his chain. Then off, as the farmer's window opened, past Stonepit's farm to Upton Hope End, over short sweet grass and worn flint arrows and the 3 dumb hows of Tencombe barrows. And away with a rolling scramble, through the sally and up the bramble, with a nose for the smells the night wind carried, and his red fell clean for being married. For clickheading time and Ghost Heath Wood had put the violet in his blood. At Tencombe Rings near the manor Linny his foot made the great black stallion whinny, and the stallion's whinny aroused the stable and the bloodhound bitches stretched their cable, and the clink of the bloodhound's chain aroused the sweet-breathed kye as they chewed and drowsed, and the stir of the cattle changed the dream of the cat in the loft to tense green gleam. The red wattled black cock hot from Spain crowed from his perch for dawn again. His breast-puffed hens, one-legged on perch, gurgled, beak down, like men in church. They crooned in the dark, lifting one red eye in the raftered roost as the fox went by. By Tencombe Regis and Slaughter's Court, through the great grass square of Roman fort, by Nuns Wood Yews and the Hungry Hill, and the Corpse Way stones all standing still, by Seven Springs Mead to Deerlip Brook, and a lolloping leap to Waterhook. Then with eyes like sparks and his blood awoken, over the grass to Waters Oaken, and over the hedge and into the ride in Ghost Heath Wood for his roving bride. Before the dawn he had loved and fed, and found a kennel, and gone to bed on a shelf of grass in a thick of gorse that would bleed a hound and blind a horse. There he slept in the mild west weather with his nose and brush well tucked together. He slept like a child, who sleeps yet hears with the self who needs neither eyes nor ears. He slept while the pheasant cock untucked his head from his wing, flew down and cooked, while the drove of the starlings whirred and wheeled out of the ash trees into field, while with great black flags that flogged and paddled the rooks went out to the plough and straddled wide on the moist red cheese of the furrows driven it up its leas. Down in the village men awoke, the chimneys breathed with a faint blue smoke. The fox slept on, though tweaks and twitches, due to his dreams, ran down his flitches. The cows were milked and the yards were sluiced, and the cocks and hens let out of roost. Windows were opened, mats were beaten, all men's breakfasts were cooked and eaten. But out in the gorse on the grassy shelf the sleeping fox looked after himself. Deep in his dream he heard the life of the woodland seek for food or wife, the hop of a stoat, a buck that thumped the squeal of a rat. As a weasel jumped, the blackbirds chackering scattering crying, the rustling bents from the rabbits flying, cows in a byre, and distant men, and Condicote church clock striking 10. At 11 o'clock a boy went past, with a rough-haired terrier following fast. The boy's sweet whistle and dog's quick yap woke the fox from out of his nap. He rose and stretched till the claws in his pads stuck hornily out like long black gads. He listened a while, and his nose went round to catch the smell of the distant sound. The windward smells came free from taint, they were rabbit, strongly, with lime kiln, faint, a wild duck, likely, at Sars Holt Pond, and sheep on the Sars Holt down beyond. The leeward smells were much less certain, for the Ghost Heath Hill was like a curtain, yet vague. From the leeward, now and then, came muffled sounds like the sound of men. He moved to his right to a clearer space, and all his soul came into his face, into his eyes and into his nose, as over the hill a murmur rose. His ears were cocked and his keen nose flared. He sneered with his lips till his teeth were bared. He trotted right and lifted a pad, trying to test what foes he had. On Ghost Heath turf was a steady drumming which sounded like horses quickly coming. It died as the hunt went down the dip. Then Malapert yelped at Mings's whip. A bright iron horseshoe clinked on stone. Then a man's voice spoke, not one alone. Then a burst of laughter, swiftly still, muffled away by Ghost Heath Hill. Then, indistinctly, the clop, clip, clep, on Brady ride, of a horse's step. Then silence, then, in a burst, much clearer, voices and horses coming nearer, and another noise, of a pit-pat beat on the Ghost Hill grass, of foxhound feet. He sat on his haunches listening hard, while his mind went over the compass card. Men were coming and rest was done, but he still had time to get fit to run. He could outlast horse and outrace hound, but men were devils from Lobbs's pound. Scent was burning, the going good, the world one lust for a fox's blood, the main earths stopped and the drains put to, and 15 miles to the land he knew. But of all the ills, the ill least pleasant was to run in the light when men were present. Men in the fields to shout and sign for a lift of hounds to a fox's line. Men at the earth, at the long point's end. Men at each check and none his friend, guessing each shift that a fox contrives. But still, needs must when the devil drives. He readied himself, then a soft horn blew, then a clear voice caroled, Ed Hoik. Alloo! Then the wood end rang with the clear voice crying and the crackle of scrub where hounds were trying. Then the horn blew nearer, a hound's voice quivered, then another, then more, till his body shivered. He left his kennel and trotted thence with his ears flexed back and his nerves all tense. He trotted down with his nose intent for a fox's line to cross his scent. It was only fair, he being a stranger, that the native fox should have the danger. Danger was coming, so swift, that the pace of his trot began to lift. The blue-winged Judas, a jay, began swearing, hounds whimpered, air stank of man. He hurried his trotting, he now felt frighted, it was his poor body made hounds excited. He felt as he ringed the great wood through that he ought to make for the land he knew. Then the hound's excitement quivered and quickened, then a horn blew death till his marrow sickened. Then the wood behind was a crash of cry for the blood in his veins. It made him fly. They were on his line. It was death to stay. He must make for home by the shortest way. But with all this yelling and all this wrath and all these devils, how find a path? He ran like a stag to the wood's north corner, where the hedge was thick and the ditch a yonner, but the scarlet glimpse of Mings on Turk, watching the woodside, made him shirk. He ringed the wood and looked at the south. What wind there was blew into his mouth. But close to the woodland's blackthorn thicket was Dancy, still as a stone, on picket. At Dancy's back were 20 more watching the cover and pressing for. The fox drew in and flared with his muzzle. Death was there if he messed the puzzle. There were men without and hounds within, a crying that stiffened the hair on skin, teeth in cover and death without, both death's coming, and no way out. His nose ranged swjftly. His heart beat fast, then a crashing cry rose up in a blast, then horse hooves trampled, then horses' flitches burst their way through the hazel switches. Then the horn again made the hounds like mad, and a man, quite near, said, "Found, by gad." And a man, quite near, said, "Now he'll break. Larks lay born Copse is the line he'll take." And men moved up with their talk and stink and the trap-like noise of the horseshoe clink. Men whose coming meant death from teeth in a worrying wrench, with him beneath. The fox sneaked down by the cover side, with his ears flexed back, as a snake would glide. He took the ditch at the cover end, he hugged the ditch as his only friend. The blackbird cock with the golden beak got out of his way with a jabbering shriek, and the shriek told Tom on the raking bay that for 18 pence he was gone away. He ran in the hedge in the triple growth of bramble and hawthorn, glad of both, till a couple of fields were passed, and then came the living death of the dread of men. Then, as he listened, he heard a hoy, Tom Dancer's horn in, a wah wah woy. Then all hounds crying with all their forces, then a thundering down of 70 horses. Robin Daw's horn and halloos of, "Hey, hark holler, hoik," and, "Gone away." Hark holler, hoik, and a smack of the whip, a yelp as a tailhound caught the clip. Hark holler, hark holler. Then Robin made Pip go crash through the cut and laid. Hounds were over and on his line with a head like bees upon Tipple Tine. The sound of the nearness sent a flood of terror of death through the fox's blood. He upped his brush and he cocked his nose, and he went upwind as a racer goes. Bold Robin Daw was over first, cheering his hounds on at the burst. The field were spurring to be in it. "Hold hard, sirs, give them half a minute," came from Sir Peter on his white. The hounds went romping with delight over the grass and got together. The tail hounds galloped hell for leather after the pack at Mings's yell. A cry like every kind of bell rang from these rompers as they raced. The riders, thrusting to be placed, jammed down their hats and shook their horses. The hounds romped past with all their forces, they crashed into the blackthorn fence. The scent was heavy on their sense, so hot, it seemed the living thing. It made the blood within them sing. Gusts of it made their hackles rise, hot gulps of it were agonies of joy, and thirst for blood and passion. "For'ard," cried Robin, "that's the fashion." He raced beside his pack to cheer. The field's noise died upon his ear, a faint horn, far behind, blew thin in cover, lest some hound were in. Then instantly the great grass rise shut field and cover from his eyes. He and his racers were alone. "A dead fox or a broken bone," said Robin, peering for his prey. The rise, which shut the field away, showed him the vale's great map spread out, the down's lean flank and thrusting snout, pale pastures, red-brown plough, dark wood, blue distance, still as solitude, glitter of water here and there, the trees so delicately bare, the dark green gorse and bright green holly. "Zero glorious God," he said, "how jolly." And there, downhill 2 fields ahead, the lolloping red dog fox sped over poor pastures to the brook. He grasped these things in one swift look, then dived into the bullfinch heart through thorns that ripped his sleeves apart and scooched new blood upon his brow. "His points larks layborn covers now," said Robin, landing with a grunt. "For'ard, my beautifuls." The hunt followed. Downhill to race with him, White Rabbit, with his swallow's skim, drew within hail. Quick burst, Sir Peter, a traveller. Nothing could be neater. Making for God's down clumps, I take it? Lark's Laybourne, sir, if he can make it. For'ard, Bill Ridden thundered down. His big mouth grinned beneath his frown. The hounds were going away from horses. He saw the glint of watercourses, Yell Brook and Whittle's Dyke. Ahead, his horseshoes sliced the green turf red. Young Cothill's chaser rushed and passed him. Knob Manor, running next, said, blast him. The poet chap who thinks he rides. Hugh Colway's mare made stracking strides across the grass, the colonel next, then Squire, volleying oaths, and vexed, fighting his hunter for refusing, Bell. Ridden, like a cutter cruising, sailing the grass. Then Cobb on Warder. Then Minton Price upon Marauder. Ock Gurney with his eyes intense, burning as with a different sense, his big mouth muttering glad, by dams. Then Pete, crouched down from head to hams, wrapped like a saint, bright focused flame. Bennett, with devils in his wame, chewing black cud and spitting. Slanting. Copse scattering jests and Stukely ranting. Sal Ridden taking line from Dancy. Long Robert forcing necromancy. A dozen more with bad beginnings. Mings riding hard to snatch an innings. A wild last hound with high shrill yelps smacked forward with some whip-thong scalps. Then last of all, at top of rise, the crowd on foot, all gasps and eyes, the run uphill had winded them. They saw the Yell Brook like a gem blue in the grass a short mile on. They heard faint cries, but hounds were gone a good 8 fields and out of sight, except a rippled glimmer white going away with dying cheering, and scarlet flappings disappearing, and scattering horses going like mad, white rabbits snowing far on ahead, a loose horse taking fence after fence with stirrups shaking, and scarlet specks and dark specks dwindling. Nearer, were twigs knocked into kindling, a much bashed fence still dropping stick, flung clods still quivering from the kick. Cut hoof marks pale in cheesy clay, the horse smell blowing clean away. Birds flitting back into the cover. One last faint cry, then all was over. The hunt had been, and found, and gone. At Neeking's farm 3 furlongs on, hounds raced across the Wacemoor road, where many of the riders slowed to tittup down a grassy lane which led as hounds led in the main, and gave no danger of a fall. There as they tittupped one and all, big 20 Stone came scattering by. His great mare made the hoof casts fly. By leave, he cried. Come on, come up, this fox is running like a tup. Let's leave this lane and get to terms, no sense in crawling here like worms. Come, let me pass and let me start. This fox is running like a hart, and this is going to be a run. Come on, I want to see the fun. Thankee, by leave, now, maiden, do it. He faced the fence and put her through it, shielding his eyes lest spikes should blind him. The crashing blackthorn closed behind him. Mud scatters chased him as he scudded. His mare's ears cocked, her neat feet thudded. The kestrel cruising over meadow watched the hunt gallop on his shadow, wee figures, almost at a stand, crossing the multicolored land, slow as a shadow on a dial. Some horses, swerving at a trial, balked at a fence, at gates they bunched. The mud about the gates was dunched like German cheese. Men pushed for places, and kicked the mud into the faces of those who made them room to pass. The half-mile's gallop on the grass had tailed them out and warmed their blood. His point's the banner Barton Wood. That, or goat's gorse. A stinger, this, you're right in that. By Jove, it is. An upwind. Travelling fox, by George. They say Tom viewed him at the forge. Well, let me pass and let's be on. They crossed the lane to Tolderton. The hill marl died to valley clay, and there before them ran the grey Yell water, swirling as it ran, the Yell Brook of the hunting man. The hunters eyed it and were grim. They saw the water snaking slim ahead, like silver. They could see, each man, his pollard willow tree firming the bank. They felt their horses catch the gleam's hint and gather forces. They heard the men behind draw near. Each horse was trembling as a spear trembles in hand when tense to hurl. They saw the brimmed brook's eddies curl, the willow roots like water snakes, the beaten holes the rattan makes. They heard the waters rush, they heard Hugh Colway's mare come like a bird, a faint cry from the hounds ahead, then saddle strain, the bright hoofs tread, quick words, the splash of mud, the launch, the sick hope that the bank be staunch, then souse, with souse to left and right. Maroon across, Sir Peter's white down but pulled up, Tom over, Hugh mud to the hat but over too, well splashed by Squire, who was in, with draggled pink stuck close to skin. The Squire leaned from bank and hauled his mired horse's rein. He bawled for help from each man racing by. What, help you pull him out? Not I. What made you pull him in? They said. Nob Manor cleared and turned his head, and cried, wade up. The fords upstream, Och Gurney in a cloud of steam stood by his dripping cob and wrung the taste of brook mud from his tongue, and scraped his poor cob's pasterns clean. Lord, what a crowner we've been. This jumping brook's a mucky job, he muttered, grinning. Lord, poor cob. Now, sir, let me. He turned to Squire and cleared his hunter from the mire by skill and sense and strength of arm. Meanwhile the fox passed Nonesuch farm, keeping the spinney on his right. Hounds raced him here with all their might along the short firm grass, like fire. The cowman viewed him from the byre lolloping on, 6 fields ahead. Then hounds, still carrying such a head it made him stare. Then Rob on Pip, sailing the great grass like a ship. Then Grand Maroon in all his glory, sweeping his strides, his great chest hoary with foam fleck and the pale hill marl. They strode the leat, they flew the snarl, they knocked the nuts at Nonesuch mill, raced up the spur of Gallows Hill and viewed him there. The line he took was to Neaton and the Pantry Brook, going like fun and hounds like mad. Tom glanced to see what friends he had still within sight. Before he turned the ridge's shoulder, he discerned, 1 field away, young Cothill sailing easily up, Pete Gurney failing, Hugh Colway quartering on Sir Peter, Bill waiting on the mare to beat her, Sal ridden skirting to the right. A horse, with stirrups flashing bright over his head at every stride, looked like the Major's. Tom espied far back a scarlet speck of man running, and straddling as he ran. Charles Copse was up, Nob Manor followed, then Bennett's big-boned black that wallowed, clumsy, but with the strength of 10. Then black and brown and scarlet men, brown horses, white and black and grey, scattered a dozen fields away. The shoulder shut the scene away. From the Gallows Hill to the Tneaton Copse there were 10 ploughed fields, like 10 full stops, all wet red clay, where a horse's foot would be swathed, feet thick, like an ash tree root. The fox raced on the headlands firm, where his swift feet scared the coupling worm. The rooks rose raving to curse him raw, he snarled a sneer at their swoop and caw. Then on, down a half-ploughed field where a ship-like plough drove glitter-keeled, with a bay horse near and a white horse leading, and a man saying, "Zook," and the red earth bleeding. He gasped as he saw the ploughman drop the stilts and swear at the team to stop. The ploughman ran in his red clay clogs, crying, "Zick Towser! Zick, good dogs!" A couple of wire-haired lurchers lean arose from his wallet, nosing keen. With a rushing swoop they were on his track, putting chest to stubble to bite his back. He swerved from his line with the curs at heel, the teeth as they missed him clicked like steel. With a worrying snarl, they quartered on him, while the ploughman shouted, "Zick!" upon him. The lurcher dogs soon shot their bolt, and the fox raced on by the hazel holt, down the dead grass tilt to the sandstone gash of the Pantry Brook at Tneaton Ash. The loitering water, flooded full, had yeast on its lip like rattled wool. It was wrinkled over with Arab script of eddies that twisted up and slipped. The stepping stones had a rush about them, so the fox plunged in and swam without them. He crossed to the cattle's drinking shallow, firmed up with rush and the roots of mallow. He wrung his coat from his draggled bones and romped away for the sarsen stones. A sneaking glance with his ears flexed back made sure that his scent had failed the pack, for the red clay, good for corn and roses, was cold for scent and brought hounds to noses. He slackened pace by the Toniton tree, a vast hollow ash tree grown in three. He wriggled a shake and padded slow, not sure if the hounds were on or no. A horn blew faint, then he heard the sounds of a cantering huntsman. Lifting hounds. The ploughman had raised his hat for sign, and the hounds were lifted and on his line. He heard the splash in the pantry brook, and a man's voice, thicky's the line he took. And a clear, yoy doit, and a whimpering quaver, though the lurcher dogs had dulled the savor. The fox went off while the hounds made halt, and the horses breathed in the field found fault, but the whimpering rose to a crying crash by the hollow ruin of Toniton ash. Then again the kettledrum horse hoofs beat, and the green blades bent to the fox's feet, and the cry rose keen not far behind of the blood, 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 in the foxhound's mind. The fox was strong, he was full of running, he could run for an hour and then be cunning, but the cry behind him made him chill. They were nearer now and they meant to kill. They meant to run him until his blood clogged on his heart as his brush with mud, till his back bent up and his tongue hung flagging, and his belly and brush were filled from dragging, till he crouched stone still, dead beat and dirty, with nothing but teeth against the 30. And all the way to that blinding end he would meet with men and have none his friend. Men to hollow and men to run him, with stones to stagger and yells to stun him. Men to head him, with whips to beat him, teeth to mangle and mouths to eat him. And all the way, that wild high crying, to cold his blood with the thought of dying, the horn and the cheer, and the drum-like thunder of the horse hooves stamping the meadows under. He upped his brush and went with a will for the sarsen stones on Wan Dyke Hill. As he ran the meadow by Toniton Church, a christening party left the porch. They stood stock still as he pounded by. They wished him luck, but they thought he'd die. The toothless babe in his long white coat looked delicate meat. The fox took note, but the sight of them grinning there, pointing finger, made him put on steam till he went a stinger. Past Toniton Church, over Toniton Waste, with the lolloping ease of a fox's haste, the fur on his chest blown dry with the air, his brush still up and his cheek teeth bare. Over the waste, where the ganders grazed, the long swift lilt of his loping lazed, his ears cocked up as his blood ran higher, he saw his point, and his eyes took fire. The Wan Dyke Hill with its fir tree barren, its dark of gorse and its rabbit warren, the dike on its heave like a tightened girth, and holes in the dike where a fox might earth. He had rabbited there long months before, the earths were deep and his need was sore. The way was new, but he took a bearing, and rushed like a blown ship billow sharing. Off Toniton Common to Toniton Dean, where the wind hid elders pushed with green, through the Dean's thin cover across the lane, and up midwinter to King of Spain. Old Joe, at digging his garden grounds, said, "A fox, being hunted, where be hounds? Zero Lord, my back, to be young again, stead a Zelen Zider in King of Spain. Zero hark, I hear, zero sweet, why there be redcoat in Gearge's wheat, and there be redcoat, and there they gallop, to or go a browncoat down a wallop. Quick, Ellen, quick, come, Susan, fly. Harem hounds, I zeed the fox go by like thunder, go by like blasting, with his girt white teeth all looking hasting. Look, there come hounds. Hark, hear 'em crying? Lord, belly to stubble, ain't they flying? There's huntsman, there, the fox come past, as I was digging, as fast. He's only been gone a minute by. A girt dark dog as pert as pie. Ellen and Susan came out scattering brooms and dustpans till all was clattering. They saw the pack come head to foot running like racers, nearly mute. Robin and Dancy quartering near, all going gallop like startled deer. A half-dozen flitting scarlets, showing in the thin green dean where the pines were growing, black coats and brown coats thrusting and spurring, sending the partridge coveys whirring. Then a rattle up hill and a clop up lane, it emptied the bar of the King of Spain. Tom left his cider, Dick left his bitter, Grandfer James left his pipe and spitter. Out they came from the sawdust floor. They said, "They'm going." They said, "Zero lore." The fox raced on, up the Barton box, with a crackle of kecks in the nettle stalks, over Hammond's grass to the dark green line of the larch wood smelling of turpentine. Scratch Stephen larches, black to the sky, a sadness breathing with one long sigh, grey ghosts of trees under funeral plumes, a mist of twig over soft brown glooms. As he entered the wood he heard the smacks, chip-jar, of the fir-pole feller's axe. He swerved to the left to a broad green ride, where a boy made him rush for the farther side. He swerved to the left, to the Barton road, but there were the timberers come to load 2 timber carts and a couple of carters with straps round their knees instead of garters. He swerved to the right, straight down the wood. The carters watched him, the boy hallooed. He leapt from the larch wood into tillage, the cobbler's garden of Barton village. The cobbler bent at his wooden foot, beating sprigs in a broken boot. He wore old glasses with thick horn rim, he scowled at his work, for his sight was dim. His face was dingy, his lips were grey, from primming sparrowbills day by day. As he turned his boot he heard a noise at his garden end, and he thought, "It's boys." He saw his cat nip up on the shed, where her back arched up till it touched her head. He saw his rabbit race round and round its little black box 3 feet from ground. His 6 hens cluckered and flocked to perch. "That's boys," said Cobbler, "so I'll go search." He reached his stick and blinked in his wrath, when he saw a fox in his garden path. The fox swerved left and scrambled out, knocking crinked green shells from the Brussels sprout. He scrambled out through the cobbler's paling, and up Pill's orchard to Purton's tailing, across the plough at the top of Bent, through the heaped manure to kill his scent, over to Aldham's, up to Coppell's, past Nursery Lot with its whitewashed apples, past Colston's broom, past Gaunt's, past Shares, past Foxwhelp's oasts with their hooded ears, past Monk's ash Clearwell, past Beggar's Oak, past the great elm's blue with the Hinton smoke. Along Long Hinton to Hinton Green, where the wind-washed steeple stood serene with its golden birds still sailing air. Past Banner Barton, past Chipping Bear, past Madding's Hollow, down Dundry Dip, and up Goosegrass to the sailing ship. The 3 black firs of the ship stood still on the bare chalk heave of the Dundry Hill. The fox looked back as he slackened past the scaled red bowl of the mizzen mast. There they were coming, mute but swift, a scarlet smear in the blackthorn rift, a white horse rising, a dark horse flying, and the hungry hounds too tense for crying. Stormkick leading, his stern spear straight, racing as though for a piece of plate. Little speck horseman field on field. Then Dancy viewed him and Robin squealed. At the view halloo, the hounds went frantic. Back went Stormkick and up went Antic. Up went Skylark as Antic sped. It was zest to blood how they carried head. Skylark drooped. As Maroon drew by, their hackles lifted, they scored to cry. The fox knew well that, before they tore him, they should try their speed on the downs before him. There were 3 more miles to the Wandike Hill, but his heart was high that he beat them still. The wind of the downland charmed his bones, so off he went for the sarsen stones. The moan of the 3 great firs in the wind and the eye of the foxhounds died behind. Wind dapples followed the hill wind's breath on the Kildown gorge where the Danes found death. Larks scattered up. The peewits feeding rose in a flock from the Kildown steeding. The hare leapt up from her form and swerved swift left for the Starval, harebell turvade. On the wind bare thorn some longtails prinking cried sweet, as though wind-blown glass were chinking. Behind came thudding and loud halloo, or a cry from hounds as they came to view. The pure clean air came sweet to his lungs, till he thought foul scorn of those crying tongues. In a 3 mile more he would reach the haven in the Wandike croaked on by the raven. In a 3 mile more he would make his berth on the hard cool floor of a Wand-dyke earth, too deep for spade, too curved for terrier, with the pride of the race to make rest the merrier. In a 3 mile more he would reach his dream, so his game heart gulped and he put on steam. Like a rocket shot to a ship ashore, the lean red bolt of his body tore, like a ripple of wind running swift on grass, like a shadow on wheat when a cloud blows past, like a turn at the buoy in a cutter sailing when the bright green gleam lips white at the railing, like the April snake whipping back to sheath, like the gannets hurtle on fish beneath, like a kestrel chasing, like a sickle reaping, like all things swooping, like all things sweeping, like a hound for stay, like a stag for swift, with his shadow beside like spinning drift. Past the gibbet stalk all stuck with nails, where they hanged in chains what had hung at jails, past Ashman show where Ashman sleeps, and none but the tumbling peewit weeps, past Curlew calling, the gaunt grey corner where the curlew comes as a summer mourner, past Blowberry beacon, shaking his fleece, where all winds hurry and none brings peace, then down on the mile-long green decline, where the turf's like spring and the air's like wine, where the sweeping spurs of the downland spill into Wan Brook Valley and Wan Dyke Hill. On he went with a galloping rally past Maseberry Clump for Wan Brook Valley. The blood in his veins went romping high, get on, to the earth or die. The air of the downs went purely past, till he felt the glory of going fast, till the terror of death, though there indeed, was lulled for a while by his pride of speed. He was romping away from hounds and hunt, he had Wan Dyke Hill and his earth in front. In a 1 mile more when his point was made he would rest in safety from dog or spade. Nose between paws he would hear the shout of the gone to earth. To the hounds without, the whine of the hounds, and their cat feet gadding, scratching the earth, and their breath padding. He would hear the horn call hounds away, and rest in peace till another day. In 1 mile more he would lie at rest, so for 1 mile more he would go his best. He reached the dip at the long droop's end and he took what speed he had still to spend. So down past Maseberry beech clump grey that would not be green till the end of May, past Arthur's table, the white chalk boulder, where pask flowers purple the down's grey shoulder, past Keeshelm's keeping, past Harry's thorn, to 30-acre all thin with corn. As he raced the corn towards Wan Dyke Brook the pack had view of the way he took. Robin hallooed from the downland's crest, he capped them on till they did their best. The 1/4 mile to the Wan Brook's brink was raced as quick as a man can think. And here, as he ran to the huntsman's yelling, the fox first felt that the pace was telling. His body and lungs seemed all grown old, his legs less certain, his heart less bold, the hound noise nearer, the hill slope steeper, the thud in the blood of his body deeper. His pride in his speed, his joy in the race were withered away, for what use was pace? He had run his best, and the hounds ran better, then the going worsened, the earth was wetter. Then his brush drooped down till it sometimes dragged, and his fur felt sick and his chest was tagged with taggles of mud, and his pads seemed lead. It was well for him he'd an earth ahead. Down he went to the brook and over, out of the corn and into the clover, over the slope that the Wan Brook drains, past Battle Tump where they earthed the Danes, then up the Hjll that the Wan Dyke rings where the sarsen stones stand grand like kings. 7 sarsens of granite grim, as he ran them by they looked at him. As he leapt the lip of their earthen paling the hounds were gaining and he was failing. He passed the sarsens, he left the spur, he pressed uphill to the blasted fir, he slipped as he leapt the hedge, he slithered. He's mine, thought Robin. He's done, he's dithered. At the second attempt he cleared the fence, he turned half right where the gorse was dense. He was leading hounds by a furlong clear, he was past his best, but his earth was near. He ran up gorse, to the spring of the ramp, the steep green wall of the dead men's camp. He sidled up it and scampered down to the deep green ditch of the dead men's town. Within, as he reached that soft green turf, the wind, blowing lonely, moaned like surf. Desolate ramparts rose up steep on either side, for the ghosts to keep. He raced the trench, past the rabbit warren, close grown with moss which the wind made barren. He passed the spring where the rushes spread, and there in the stones was his earth ahead. One last short burst upon failing feet. Their life lay waiting. So sweet, rest in a darkness, balm for aches. The earth was stopped. It was barred with stakes. With the hounds at head so close behind he had to run as he changed his mind. This earth, as he saw, was stopped, but still there was one earth more on the wan dyke hill a rabbit burrow a furlong on. He could kennel there till the hounds were gone. Though his death seemed near he did not blench, he upped his brush and he ran the trench. He ran the trench while the wind moaned treble, earth trickled down, there were falls of pebble. Down in the valley of that dark gash the wind withered grasses looked like ash. Trickles of stones and earth fell down in that dark alley of dead men's town. A hawk arose from a fluff of feathers, from a distant fold came a bleat of wethers. He heard no noise from the hounds behind but the hill wind moaning like something blind. He turned the bend in the hill, and there was his rabbit hole with its mouth worn bare. But there, with a gun tucked under his arm, was young Sid Kissop of Prolpit's farm, with a white hob ferret to drive the rabbit into a net which was set to nab it. And young Jack Cole peered over the wall, and loosed a pup with a z-bite-n, Saul. The terrier pup attacked with a will, so the fox swerved right and away downhill. Down from the ramp of the dike. He ran to the brackeny patch where the gorse began, into the gorse, where the hill's heave hid the line he took from the eyes of Sid. He swerved downwind and ran like a hare for the wind-blown spinney below him there. He slipped from the gorse to the spinney dark. There were curled grey growths on the oak tree bark. He saw no more of the terrier pup, but he heard men speak. And the hounds come up. He crossed the spinney with ears intent for the cry of hounds on the way he went. His heart was thumping, the hounds were near now. He could make no sprint at a cry and cheer now. He was past his perfect. His strength was failing, his brush sagged and his legs were ailing. He felt, as he skirted dead men's town, that in 1 mile more they would have him down. Through the withered oak's wind-crouching tops he saw men's scarlet above the copse. He heard men's oaths, yet he felt hounds slacken, in the frondless stalks of the brittle bracken. He felt that the unseen link which bound his spine to the nose of the leading hound was snapped. That the hounds no longer knew which way to follow nor what to do. That the threat of the hound's teeth left his neck. They had ceased to run, they had come to check. They were quartering wide on the wan hills bent. The terrier's chase had killed his scent. He heard bits chink as the horses shifted. He heard hounds cast, then he heard hounds lifted. But there came no cry from a new attack. His heart grew steady, his breath came back. He left the spinney and ran its edge by the deep dry ditch of the blackthorn hedge, then out of the ditch and down the meadow, trotting at ease in the blackthorn shadow, over the track called God's Down Road, to the great grass heave of the gods' abode. He was moving now upon land he knew, up Clench Royal and Morton too, the Pole Brook, Cheddesden, and East Stoke Church, High Clench St. Lawrence and Tinkers. Birch land he had roved on night by night, for hot blood suckage or furry bite. The threat of the hounds behind was gone. He breathed deep pleasure and trotted on. While young Sid Kissop thrashed the pup Robin on Pip came heaving up, and found his pack spread out at check. "I'd like to wring your terrier's neck," he said, "you see? He's spoiled our sport, he's killed the scent." He broke off short, and stared at hounds and at the valley. No jay or magpie gave a rally. Down in the copse, no circling rooks rose over fields. Old Joyful's looks were doubtful in the gorse. The pack quested both up and down and back. He watched each hound for each small sign. They tried, but could not hit the line. The scent was gone. The field took place out of the way of hounds. The pace had tailed them out, though 4 remained. Sir Peter, on White Rabbit, stained red from the brooks, Bill ridden cheery, Hugh Colway with his mare dead weary, the Colonel with marauder beat. They turned towards a thud of feet. Dancy, and then young Cottle came. His chestnut mare was gallop tame. There's Copse afield behind, he said. Those last miles put them all to bed. They're strung along the downs like flies. Copse and Knob Manor topped the rise. Thank God. A check, they said, at last. They cannot own it. You must cast, Sir Peter said. The soft horn blew. Tom turned the hounds upwind. They drew upwind, downhill, by Spinney side. They tried the brambled ditch. They tried the swamp, all choked with bright green grass and clumps of rush, and pools like glass, long since the dead men's drinking pond. They tried the white-leaved oak beyond, but no hound spoke to it or feathered. The horse heads drooped like horses tethered, the men mopped brows. An hour's hard run, 10 miles, they said, we must have done. It's all of 6 from Colston's Gorzes. The lucky got their second. Horses. The time ticked by. He's lost, they muttered. A pheasant rose. A rabbit scuttered. Men mopped their scarlet cheeks and drank. They drew downwind along the bank, the wan way. On the hill's south spur, grown with dwarf oak and juniper, like dwarves alive, but no hound spoke. The seepings made the ground one soak. They turned the spur. The hounds were beat. Then Robin shifted in his seat watching for signs, but no signs showed. I'll lift across the Godsdown road beyond the Spinney, Robin said. Tom turned them. Robin went ahead. Beyond the copse a great grass fallow stretched towards Stoke and Cheddesdon Mallow, a rolling grass where hounds grew keen. Yoy do it, then. This is where he's been, said Robin, eager at their joy. Youi. Joyful, lad. Youi. Corner boy. They're on to him. At his reminders the keen hounds hurried to the finders. The finding hounds began to hurry. Men jammed their hats, prepared to scurry. The I of the cry began. Its spirit passed to horse and man. The skirting hounds romped to the cry. Hound after hound cried, I, till all were crying, running, closing, their heads well up and no heads nosing. Joyful ahead with spear straight stern they raced the great slope to the burn. Robin beside them. Tom behind pointing past Robin down the wind. For there, 2 furlongs on, he viewed on Holy Hill or Cheddesdon Rood, just where the ploughland joined the grass, a speck down the first furrow pass, a speck the color of the plough. Yonder he goes. We'll have him now, he cried. The speck passed slowly on, it reached the ditch, paused, and was gone. Then down the slope and up the rood went the hunt's gallop. Godsdown Wood dropped its last oak leaves at the rally. Over the rood to High Clench Valley the gallop led. The redcoats scattered. The fragments of the hunt were tattered over 5 fields, even since the check. A dead fox or a broken neck, said Robin Daw. Come up, the Dane. The hunter leant against the rain, cocking his ears. He loved to see the hounds at cry. The hounds and he the chiefs in all that feast of pace. The speck in front began to race. The fox heard hounds get on to his line, and again the terror went down his spine. Again the back of his neck felt cold, from the sense of the hound's teeth taking hold. But his legs were rested, his heart was good, he had breath to gallop to Morn End Wood. It was 4 miles more, but an earth at end, so he put on pace down the rude hill bend. Down the great grass slope which the oak trees dot, with a swerve to the right from the keeper's cot, over High Clench Brook in its channel deep, to the grass beyond, where he ran to sheep. The sheep formed line like a troop of horse, they swerved, as he passed, to front his course. From behind, as he ran, a cry arose. See the sheep there. Watch them, there he goes. He ran the sheep that their smell might check the hounds from his scent and save his neck. But in 2 fields more he was made aware that the hounds still ran. Tom had viewed him there. Tom had held them on through the tane of sheep. They had kept his line, as they meant to keep. They were running hard with a burning scent, and Robin could see which way he went. The pace that he went brought strain to breath. He knew as he ran that the grass was death. He ran the slope towards Morton too that the heave of the hill might stop the view. Then he doubled down to the Blood Brook Red, and swerved upstream in the brook's deep bed. He splashed the shallows, he swam the deeps, he crept by banks as a moorhen creeps. He heard the hounds shoot over his line, and go on, towards Cheddesden Zine. In the minute's peace he could slacken speed. The ease from the strain was sweet indeed. Cool to the pads the water flowed. He reached the bridge on the Cheddesden road. As he came to light from the culvert dim, 2 boys on the bridge looked down on him. They were young Bill Ripple and Harry Munn. "Look, there be squirrel, a swimmin', see, un?" Noah bent a squirrel, be fox, be fox. "Now, Hal, get pebble, we'll give, socks." "Get pebble, Billy, dub, on a plaster, there's for thy belly. I'll learn, master." The stones splashed spray in the fox's eyes. He raced from brook in a burst of shies. He ran for the reeds in the withy car, where the dead flags shake and the wild duck are. He pushed through the reeds, which cracked at his passing, to the high clench water, a grey pool glassing. He heard Bill Ripple, in Cheddesden Road, shout, "This way, huntsman, it's here he goed." Then, loo, 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 went the soft horn's laughter. The hounds, they had checked, came romping after. The clop of the hooves on the road was plain, then the crackle of reeds, then cries again. A whimpering first, then Robin's cheer, then the I, they were all too near. His swerve had brought but a minute's rest. Now he ran again, and he ran his best. With a crackle of dead dry stalks of reed the hounds came romping at topmost speed. The redcoats ducked as the great hooves skittered the blood brook's shallows to sheets that glittered. With a cracking whip and a hoik, 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 forward, Tom galloped. Bob shouted, yoik. Like a running fire the dead reeds crackled. The hounds' heads lifted, their necks were hackled. Tom cried to Bob, as they thundered through, "He is running short, we shall kill it too." Bob cried to Tom as they rode in team, "I was sure, that time, that he turned upstream." As the hounds went over the brook in stride I saw old Daffodil fling to side. So I guessed at once, when they checked beyond. The ducks flew up from the Morton pond. The fox looked up at their tailing strings. He wished, perhaps, that a fox had wings. Wings with his friends in a great V straining the autumn sky when the moon is gaining. For better the grey sky's solitude than to be 2 miles from the Morn End wood with the hounds behind, clean trained to run, and your strength half spent and your breath half done. Better the reeds in the sky and water than that hopeless pad from a certain slaughter. At the Morton pond the fields began long Tew's green meadows. He ran. First the 6 green fields that make a mile, with the lip full clench at the side the while, with rooks above, slow circling, showing the world of men where a fox was going. The fields all empty, dead grass, bare hedges, and the brook's bright gleam in the dark of sedges. To all things else he was dumb and blind. He ran with the hounds a field behind. At the 6th green field came the long slow climb to the Morn End wood, as old as time. Yew woods dark, where they cut for bows, oak woods green with the mistletoes, dark woods evil, but burrowed deep with a brock's earth strong, where a fox might sleep. He saw his point on the heaving hill. He had failing flesh and a reeling will. He felt the heave of the hill grow stiff. He saw black woods, which would shelter if nothing else, but the steepening slope and a black line nodding. A line of hope, the line of the yews on the long slope's brow. A mile, 3/4, a half mile now. A 1/4 mile, but the hounds had viewed. They yelled to have him this side the wood. Robin capped them. Tom Dancy steered them, with a "Yui, Yui, Yui." Bill Ridden cheered them. Then up went hackles as Shatterer led. "Mob him," cried Ridden, "the wood's ahead. Turn him, damn it. Yui, beauties, beat him. 0 God. Let them get him. Let them eat him." 0 God, said Ridden. "I'll eat him stewed, if you'll let us get him this side the wood." But the pace, uphill, made a horse like stone. The pack went wild up the hill alone. 300 yards and the worst was past. The slope was gentler and shorter grassed. The fox saw the bulk of the woods grow tall on the brae ahead, like a barrier wall. He saw the skeleton trees show sky and the yew trees darken to see him die, and the line of the woods go reeling black. There was hope in the woods and behind, the pack. 200 yards and the trees grew taller, blacker, blinder, as hope grew smaller. Cry seemed nearer, the teeth seemed gripping, pulling him back. His pads seemed slipping. He was all one ache, one gasp, one thirsting, heart on his chest bones, beating, bursting. The hounds were gaining like spotted pards, and the wood hedge still was 100 yards. The wood hedge black was a 2-year, quick cut and laid that had sprouted thjck thorns all over and strongly plied, with a clean red ditch on the takeoff side. He saw it now as a redness, topped with a wattle of thorn work spiky cropped. Spiky to leap on, stiff to force, no safe jump for a failing horse. But beyond it darkness of yews. Together, dark green plumes over soft brown feather, darkness of woods where scents were blowing strange scents, hot scents, of wild things going, scents that might draw these hounds away. So he ran to that clean red clay. Still, as he ran, his pads slipped back, all his strength seemed to draw, the pack, the trees drew over him dark like norns, he was over the ditch. And at the thorns. He thrust at the thorns, which would not yield. He leapt, but fell, in sight of the field. The hounds went wild as they saw him fall. The fence stood stiff like a buck's flint wall. He gathered himself for a new attempt. His life before was an old dream dreamt. All that he was a blown fox quaking, jumping at thorns too stiff for breaking, while over the grass in crowd, in cry, came the grip teeth grinning to make him die, the eyes intense, dull, smoldering red, the fell like a rough round each keen head, the pace like fire, and scarlet men galloping, yelling, "Yui, eat him!" Then he gathered himself, he leapt, he reached the top of the hedge like a fishboat beached. He steadied a second and then leapt down to the dark of the wood where bright things drown. He swerved, sharp right, under young green firs. Robin called on the Dane with spurs. He cried, "Come, Dancy. If God's not good, we shall change our fox in this morn end wood." Tom cried back as he charged like spate, "Mine can't jump that, I must ride to gate." Robin answered, "I'm going at him. I'll kill that fox, if it kills me. Drat him, we'll kill in covert. Gur on, now, Dane." He gripped him tight and he made it plain. He slowed him down till he almost stood, while his hounds went crash into morn end wood. Like a dainty dancer, with footing nice the Dane turned side for a leap in twice. He cleared the ditch to the red clay bank. He rose at the fence as his quarters sank. He barged the fence as the bank gave way, and down he came in a fall of clay. Robin jumped off him and gasped for breath. He said, "That's lost him as sure as death. They've overrun him. Come up, the Dane. We'll kill him yet, if we ride to Spain." He scrambled up to his horse's back. He thrust through cover. He called his pack. He cheered them on till they made it good, where the fox had swerved. Inside the wood, the fox knew well as he ran the dark, that the headlong hounds were past their mark. They had missed his swerve and had overrun, but their devilish play was not yet done. For a minute he ran and he heard no sound. Then a whimper came from a questing hound. Then a, "This way, beauties," and then, "Loo, loo," the floating laugh of the horn that blew. Then the cry again, and the crash and rattle of the shrubs burst back as they ran to battle, till the wood behind seemed risen from root, crying and crashing, to give pursuit, till the trees seemed hounds and the air seemed cry, and the earth so far that he needs but die where he reeled in the woodland dim, with a hound's white grips in the spine of him. For one more burst he could spurt, and then wait for the teeth, and the wrench, and men. He made his spurt for the morn end rocks. The air blew rank with the taint of fox. The yews gave way to a greener space of great stones strewn in a grassy place. And there was his earth at the great grey shoulder, sunk in the ground, of a granite boulder. A dry, deep burrow with a rocky roof, proof against crowbars, terrier-proof, life to the dying, rest for bones. The earth was stopped, it was filled with stones. Then, for a moment, his courage failed, his eyes looked up as his body quailed. Then the coming of death, which all things dread, made him run for the wood ahead. The taint of fox was rank on the air, he knew, as he ran, there were foxes there. His strength was broken, his heart was bursting, his bones were rotten, his throat was thirsting. His feet were reeling, his brush was thick from dragging the mud, and his brain was sick. He thought as he ran of his old delight in the wood in the moon in an April night, his happy hunting, his winter loving, the smells of things in the midnight roving, the look of his dainty nosing. Red, clean felled dam with her footpads tread, of his sire, so swift, so game, so cunning, with craft in his brain and power of running. Their fights of old when his teeth drew blood, now he was sick, with his coat all mud. He crossed the covert, he crawled the bank, to a mews in the thorns, and there he sank, with his ears flexed back and his teeth shone white, in a rat's resolve for a dying bite. And there, as he lay, he saw the vale, that a struggling sunlight silvered pale. The deerlip brook like a strip of steel, the nuns' wood yews where the rabbits squeal, the great grass square of the Roman fort, and the smoke in the elms at Crendon Court. And above the smoke in the elm tree tops was the beech clumps blur, blown Hilcote copse where he and his mates had long made merry in the bloody joys of the rabbit harry. And there as he lay and looked, the cry of the hounds at head came rousing by. He bent his bones in the blackthorn dim. But the cry of the hounds was not for him. Over the fence with a crash they went, belly to grass, with a burning scent. Then came Dancy, yelling to Bob, "They've changed. Oh, damn it, now here's a job." And Bob yelled back, "Well, we cannot turn 'em, it's jumper and antic, Tom. We'll learn 'em. We must just go on, and I hope we kill." They followed hounds down the Morn End Hill. The fox lay still in the rabbit mews, on the dry brown dust of the plumes of yews. In the bottom below a brook went by, blue, in a patch, like a streak of sky. There one by one, with a clink of stone, came a red or dark coat on a horse half blown. And man to man with a gasp for breath said, "Lord, what a run! I'm fagged to death." After an hour no riders came. The day drew by like an ending game. A robin sang from a puffed red breast, the fox lay quiet and took his rest. A wren on a tree stump caroled clear, then the starlings wheeled in a sudden sheer. The rooks came home to the twiggy hive in the elm tree tops which the winds do drive. Then the noise of the rooks fell slowly still, and the lights came out in the Clench Brook mill. Then a pheasant cocked, then an owl began, with the cry that curdles the blood of man. The stars grew bright as the yews grew black, the fox rose stiffly and stretched his back. He flared the air, then he padded out to the valley below him, dark as doubt, winter thin with the young green crops, for old Cold Crendon and Hilcote Copse. As he crossed the meadows at Naunton Larking the dogs in town all started barking, for with feet all bloody and flanks all foam, the hounds in the hunt were limping home. Limping home in the dark dead beaten, the hounds all rank from a fox they'd eaten. Dancy saying to Robin Daw, "The fastest and longest I ever saw." And Robin answered, "Oh, Tom, 'twas good. I thought they'd changed in the Morn End Wood, but now I feel that they did not change. We've had a run that was great and strange, and a kill in the end, at dusk, on grass. We'll turn to the cock and take a glass, for the hounds, poor souls, are past their forces, and a gallon of ale for our poor horses, and some bits of bread for the hounds, poor things. After all they've done, for they've done like kings, would keep them going till we get in. We had it alone from the nuns would win." Then Tom replied, "If they changed or not, there've been few runs longer and none more hot. We shall talk of today until we die." The stars grew bright in the winter sky, The wind came keen with a tang of frost. The brook was troubled for new things lost. The copse was happy for old things found. The fox came home and he went to ground. And the hunt came home and the hounds were fed. They climbed to their bench and went to bed. The horses in stable loved their straw. "Good night, my beauties," said Robin Daw. Then the moon came quiet and flooded full light and beauty on clouds like wool, on a feasted fox at rest from hunting, in the beech wood grey where the brocks were grunting. The beech wood grey rose dim in the night with moonlight fallen in pools of light. The long dead leaves on the ground were rimmed. A clock struck 12 and the church bells chimed.